So I feel like being the change. So how about you? But before we get into our groove and spew to you some news and views that you should use, let's make this move. Of course, we'll see you in 2 and a few. 7:02 a.m. Inside the Manshow. Shake yesterday off. It's Friday, y'all. The weekend. Whenever you're a boss, of course, your weekend started yesterday. Let's get ready for that next 8 hours. Once again, you're inside the Manshow, 860 WNOV and W293 CX 106.5 FM, Milwaukee. That's just where I get everybody all pumped up. Y'all can't finish talking anymore up in here. What's happening, dog?
What's happening, man?
Really appreciate the conversation this weekend, man.
Oh, man. What you doing after this?
Oh, so, ladies and gents, if you could, if you have 15 minutes or so, most of you got to go to the office towards the highway. The office is right on 12th in Atkinson, 1220. Got some coffee and some light breakfast for y'all to stop in and have some.
Look at Kim, being the superior host.
Right.
I like that in you.
Not done. So, we'll do the first focus on Nicole. Like I told you, you can stay and engage in his conversation. Tell Richard Smith that he could engage in the conversation. He said that atheist people are going to come in. So just dialogue. Von Mays has invited, what's your name again? Nate Gilliam, to discuss ascension. Is that on everybody's radar? Anybody's radar?
St. Joe.
St. Joe's. The issues or whatever. So, I don't know, you want to kick a little bit of that before we get into the conversation with her?
It's up to you.
Give it to you about 15, 20 after. Everybody can speak on it.
I'll just jump in.
Like, hi,
I'm all over the place, man.
Hi, I'm Nate. Who are you? Vaughn told me to come.
You're listening to WNOV 860 and W293CX 106.5 Milwaukee.
707 Inside the Manshow, 860 WNOV, W293CX 106.5 FM on your radio dial. So yes, AM and AM and even on your FM dial, you dig. This morning, once again, I'm in for the real deal with my main man, Jason Fields, and we're going to fulfill the bill. Grab Marquis, what's going on this morning? Definitely.
What's happening, man? I am back. Y'all decided not to kick me out, so you know, praise God. Won't He do it?
Look at God.
Look at God.
Jason brings so much to the table
With all that positive energy talk.
Yes, yes.
No, great show, man. Thanks for having me back. You got a room full of wonderful, awesome people that I'm anxious to talk to, ask questions, and learn from, brother.
Indeed, indeed. We're going to let you know who those are in a minute. Right now, that voice you heard right there is my main man, Jason Fields, State Representative and Financial
Guru.
Let's
go with Guru. Let's go with Guru.
Guru. And he does know how to wear fuchsia in the proper masculine manner, if I must say so myself. Good morning, my people. Once again, welcome to the program. We got Von Mays in the house, too, finally. Early in the morning. How you doing this morning, bro?
Peace, people.
Hold on. Your mic's not on. Your mic's not on. There you go.
How y'all doing, family?
They still don't like you. Go ahead.
Peace, people.
Yeah, he's up early in the morning, 31-year-old. Up at 7:08 in the morning. We must get him. He usually steps in by 8 o'clock. How you doing, man?
Oh man, I'm good, man. Working all over the place, you know, trying to make stuff happen. So,
what's been going on in your life, man? You are working. We ain't heard from you.
Yeah, I'm glad we got Miss Brookshire in. We working with her, trying to make something happen, man. You know, we scrambling, trying to get some things together. But other than that, working with Nate and a group of organizers and groups, trying to get the Ascension and St. Joe's thing going, and also transitioning, trying to transition back into the parks for this year.
Whoa,
so,
ready for that?
Yeah, ain't got no choice but to be ready, man.
Yeah.
You know, so that's
so
what it is.
as Vaughn already gave the surprise away, we got two fascinating guests in the house. We got Nicole Brookshire here with us. Good morning.
Morning.
Make sure you got the right, Mike. Yeah, there you go. Talk to him again.
Morning.
Morning. She's the director, right? Director?
Correct.
Office of Milwaukee County Office, Milwaukee County Department of African American Affairs.
Good enough.
Good enough. And in the background there, he's going to engage with us too. We have interim sheriff, Milwaukee County interim sheriff Richard Schmidt. How you doing there?
Well, good morning. Great to be here with you once again.
Yeah, we invited him to the Manshow about 3 weeks ago. He made an announcement Tuesday that changed the game a little bit, but we're going to try to have that same conversation that we intended to have in the 8 o'clock hour. About what's going on with the new regime at the Milwaukee County Sheriff's Department. And we're going to try to stick to that. No political talk today. Hopefully we can just stay communal and talk about community engagement. And Vaughn, you brought a guest with you. You said Nate, but who is Nate? You got a mic there.
I'll let the brother tell himself, you know what I'm saying?
Hey, how you doing?
Good. How you doing? Good morning.
And you are?
I'm Nate Gilliam. I'm an organizer with Wisconsin Federation of Nurses and Health Professionals, and I'm here to talk about St. Joe's. So,
What you got to say about St. Joe?
we're trying to push back on all cuts and actually look for an expansion of services at St. Joe's. No, I mean, I think that's great. I mean, I think it's an uphill battle, and I think y'all taking the right steps by getting the community behind you and talking with all the individuals, because it's, again, whenever you have stuff like that comes, it becomes a strategic battle, and you want to make sure it's not turning into something political where people are just showing up because it is a hot button issue.
Right.
And now when trouble come, now all the politicians, elected officials come out because that's where the camera's at. So, you know, man, I'm very candid and honest. Keep doing what you're doing and fighting. I know George Hinton from SDC, chairman, spoke out about it, and most of you who know George Hinton, former hospital administrator, understands that. I've gotten calls from some of the hospital bigwigs at Ascension and all that, but I'll be honest, I didn't take phone calls because when you have stuff like that happens, what typically happens is people try to, divide, conquer, and start setting you up against each other. So I was like, no, I'm not answering those calls.
I mean, I think, I appreciate that commentary. I think it's important, you know, that we do the work. I work directly with Ascension as an organizer at St. Francis Hospital, and so, you know, we have a lot of information and background of, you know, kind of other places, and I think it's really important for the community to be aware of different things, and I think, you know, a healthy amount of skepticism at best is needed.
It is.
And then, you know, outright rejection of some suggestions should be warranted when we talk about healthcare, especially in the disparities that we have in our community. So I think that's something that's important that we need to raise up people's voices.
So you guys went deep real quick.
I know. I mean,
So
whenever
for us lame folks,
Yeah.
and those who may not be in tune with what's going on, you know, like me, I hear, but I don't go in depth. What is the issue surrounding Ascension St. Joe's?
Right. So on April, let me get the dates right. April 5th, they suggested that they were going to cut inpatient and surgery services out of St. Joe's Hospital. And so, you know, we working directly with Ascension and working with people in other states that work with Ascension, we understand that this is probably a step towards the process of closing the hospital, which will leave Milwaukee without a Northside hospital. You know, and I'm old enough, I've been here all my life to know that about, you know, St. Michael's and other hospitals that left the north side of the city and the hole that leaves. And also, you know, just the quality of healthcare that declines when you know, multi-billion-dollar corporations make decisions that aren't based in, you know, real life, the people that are affected the most. So, you know, we kind of, you know, got a lot of calls from different places and started to try to build with people in the community that were organizers and really try to get the word out there to let people know, you know, we got to push back on this as quickly as possible. Who can we get on board, and how do we get the community in front of this to let them understand the issue? So that's a basic background.
Let me ask you this question, because I know healthcare, particularly when you run in hospitals, that it has turned into a business where, unfortunately, it's about money now. It's not necessarily about the patient care. Right. That being said, I mean, and I'll be candid, St. Joe's ain't got the best reputation all the time. You know, but the detriment that it would have if that hospital left us. I mean, what's the alternative? The worst case scenario, let's say they gone. I mean, what happens to us?
Right. I don't have the answer, and I hope I don't ever see that. You know,
I mean,
that's
we going to hospitals way out.
Right. Right. Well, even the interesting part is that when we went in and had discussions with Ascension leadership, and some of the things that they suggested as proposals that like phase 2 were like, you know, community gardens and different things, and like that doesn't, you know, with the space that they have at the hospital that they're not utilizing, you know, you know, all those things should exist in the community. But we talk about hospital, we talk about healthcare. You can't, you know, take out surgery, inpatient care, and say, hey, you know,
let's put a guard.
You know, let's look at a homeless shelter or something like that. That's actually really offensive if you really think about that, you know, in terms of what people need in the community and expansion of services. And also, you know, there should be more, I think, vision and creativity, you know, working, you know, within the community to look at the problem and try to, you know, maybe we start a program to hire some of the people from our community to work at that hospital, or training programs with, you know, maybe MATC or whoever else to have, you know, nurses, other health professionals, different people from the community that need jobs, good quality jobs to work at that hospital, take care of our people. So,
I mean, I love the fact that you said that because I love the fact that you went to a solution, and one of those solutions was to hire people from our community who have the commitment and passion for our community. And because it's an overall win-win for everybody. I mean, it puts money in people's pocket. It gives us people we trust and know from the community. And so what do you need from us to help assist, keep going, to back you up on that? Because a lot of times, and I'll say this, when the battle starts, everybody is up front, they're ready to work, we're all excited, but then after a minute, you know, people start falling off.
right.
What do we need to do to continue to support you and the crew?
I think, you know, even the pause that Ascension said that they're doing at the moment, I think it's important for us to stay vigilant, you know, in terms of understanding and literally talk to the community and raise them up to see what we really need. Because I'm an organizer, you know, I have ideas, but like it's collective, you know, it's really a process of people understanding what the issues are, what we need to do to find a solution. I mean, my suggestions, they're just suggestions at this moment, but to really wrestle with these ideas and push forward the best solutions for the community, honestly. And if our electeds can get behind this and really show up and be strong on this, that would be wonderful.
Phone lines are open, 414-444-5250, 444-5250 if you have questions, comments, or contributions to the dialogue right now. We're talking with Nate Gilliam in regards to the issues with Ascension St. Joseph.
Now, and let me give a shout out to Nate and to everybody working on the issue, because I think what happens is when you said keep the momentum, the fact that you rose, you put together some people, and now they push back some of that stuff. Shouldn't be taken lightly, because I think what it says is that, hey, when the community gets together and moves and works cohesively, they can make a difference. And so, again, I think from this point on, and here's where we as a community need to understand, it's about strategy and it's about playing long ball. Now, again, and I love that solution you gave, what are we going to do to deal with this issue? But more importantly, what are we going to do to make sure these issues don't, after 4 or 5 years from now, we faced and we're in the same battle again? Is this a time for us to look at, okay, how do we train people to get into the healthcare industry from our community?
Yeah, honestly, it's funny, and this has been a crazy week for me, but in the last 5 or 6 days, I've had meetings with the Black Nurses Association at MATC, and they're we were talking with Black nurses in our union about the impact of healthcare as a worker and as a patient and different things. So we had a meeting Monday night, and so a lot of the questions that were raised were like, well, how do y'all connect to to young people in the schools and the community, and they talked about some of their their issues, but also like within hearing the issues that they have. To me, this is an opportune time to kind of talk about, well, let's start connecting people, connecting the dots. I will say this, I come from a union background. We deal with dissension at St. Francis, and to me, when they came to us even at St. Francis about talking about proposed cuts, very simply, we were able to push back on some of those things because we actually have a contract, we're organized, we have workers that know the issues, that know a contract, but we still have to fight for everything within that. So looking forward to having that kind of thing, but definitely have people from our community be involved in that kind of stuff, and knowing those kind of things I think are really important.
What was the rationale for the cutbacks? I mean, is it because Medicaid reimbursement levels are so low? What's this a different demographic than Mequon? I mean, what was the pushback? So, what was the rationale?
They kind of have a public rationale around that. I mean, we felt it was honestly like racism. It was medical redlining essentially. So, for example, I think it was 2015, 2016, they lost twice as much money at Columbia St. Mary's Hospital than they did at St. Joe's. You're proposing the cuts at St. Joe's over Columbia St. Mary, and it's a financial issue that you're making this decision. So that was really like hurtful, know. And again, the proposed suggestions about alternatives to using the space at the hospital were really offensive, and this is my personal opinion, but again, like, are you making these suggestions, like you're saying, in Ozaukee County or Waukesha County to have homeless shelters or whatever kind of thing in that space? No, we talk about healthcare. This is a hospital. This is what people need. This employs people from the community. So you're talking about, we're not laying people off or different things out. How hard is it from people that maybe work at that hospital that live on the north side to have to travel to, Elmbrook Hospital or Columbia St. Mary or the St. Francis Hospital still in their system? Different things that people are not thinking about, that we really need to work to educate the community about, and to really have people understand this issue deeper than that, and deeper than what I even understand myself, because I'm kind of new to the healthcare world. But I think some of the rationale they gave doesn't fit.
Let me ask you about the future of the organization, the union that you guys are you looking at, or is there any plans to help recruit and bring more youth into the healthcare arena? Because it's going to be a changing and a thriving industry. It's not going anywhere. In fact, the same people who were taking drugs in the 60s are going to be taking drugs again. Yeah. So healthcare is going to be it's going to blow up. And so you're going to have a lot of more arrests on your hands. So are there any talks with how do we get and galvanize youth to look at the healthcare industry as a career and within the community?
Again, I mean,
I'm sorry, I'm hitting you with a bunch of
no, it's fine. I'm telling you, I don't have all that.
I'm gonna make you the head before you leave here. You gonna be the head.
I think it's important. Like, I mean, you kind of talked about the solution in your question, like how we, I think we really need to, you know, and again, like talking with the people from MATC the other day, and they're really trying to push, you know, to get into the high schools and different, you know, even middle schools at times to talk to. And I think it's important too that, you know, like the young, you know, black nurses, activists that we have to reach out to people. And I know they do on their own time and different things like that, but to really show that and really raise that up for people in the community to see that as a career, because healthcare, like you said, it ain't going nowhere. People always have health issues. I mean, and you know, the human touch or interaction is always important to that. So I think, you know, if we have more of our people engaged and see career pathways to where, you know, it makes sense and people having healthy, you know, jobs and take care of their patients, there's always going to be that cycle.
We got a caller that's been waiting on the phone line. We're pushing up against a break. We got to bring this topic to a close. So let's get this caller in. Caller, you're inside the Manshow. Talk to us.
Hey, Keon, what's going on, man?
Good morning. How's it going?
All right, look here. I got a couple of things.
Well, look at here. Let him go. You still there?
Yes.
Okay, you broke up on us. Come on with it.
Let's talk about trying to go to the boardroom where the decisions are made about closing these hospitals as opposed to putting people in on the front end. Let's put them in on the top end. We can use them on both spectrums. But we need people in the boardroom making these decisions too, not just putting a needle in the arm and saying, here's your shot, you can go home now. That's all I got, bro.
All right, we appreciate your contribution. So, Nate, before we get out of here, if people want to get involved with the process and talk and get in contact with you, what's their contact information?
Actually, so we're having a big community event at Parkland Assembly of God this Sunday at 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. You know, we want people to come out and raise their voice about this issue of St. Joe's, you know, whatever kind of personal experience you've had, but also what you would like to see in the community. You know, again, like Jason talked about, solution, you know, oriented process, or, you know, different things to be just vigilant about a pause, because, you know, again, a healthy amount of skepticism is needed here in terms of understanding how corporations and different things like that. And I guess to the brother's comment, we did have a meeting with the head people at Ascension, and they, you know,
it's a work in progress.
It's a work in progress. So so, you know, people think what they think, they know what they know, and so you know, we really trying to get the community's voice up there. That's the important part. So
I vote for him to be in the boardroom. I like him.
Nate Gilliam.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, we appreciate you. We got to take a pause for the calls, pay some bills inside the Manshow, 860 WNOV and the new W293CX 106.5 FM. We'll see you in two and a few. Return to win the Cole Brookshire on the other side. All right.
Appreciate it. No problem, man. Yeah, appreciate it. Yeah, I know. Try to prop this up again somewhere. You awake? Right here.
Women in Worship 2018.
You know what? I'm going to fall back a little bit and have some air. I need Vaughn and Marquez up here first and foremost. And the school just lay back. She came here breathing hard.
Figure out.
She came here breathing hard.
I mean, do you see me hearing this today?
No, I did.
My life.
Yeah, right.
Right. I got work to do as well.
Oh,
Ain't a lot of people. What's happening?
Hi, how are you?
Good.
City of Milwaukee residents, it's spring cleaning time. Refresh your home with Milwaukee's annual Clean and Green
Right, player. What's
unwanted
She done brought the office to the
Yeah, we sent out
studio.
a press release this morning.
These items can be brought to a drop-off center or on your official Clean and Green garbage collection day. Just place these items at your garbage collection point, and the City of Milwaukee DPW will pick them up for free.
no, I got it. I forgot my phone. This phone messed up. Can't hear.
Or visit Milwaukee.gov/Clean and Green to learn when Clean and Green will be in your neighborhood.
Milwaukee, get ready for the party of the year. It's her time. Jennifer Washington of the Off the Shelf Book Club will be in concert celebrating her birthday with special guests Jermaine Rideout and Soul Serious, Sister Strings, and rapper Adelwood. Saturday, April 28th at the Bayou Restaurant, formerly the Big Easy, 2053 North MLK Drive. Advance tickets $20 and $25 at the door. Doors open at 7 p.m. Concert at 8 p.m. This concert is going to sell out, so get your tickets now at Jazzy Ray Jewels, Lounge, the Bayou Restaurant, and at Event Park.
Hello, Milwaukee. This is Jennifer Washington off the chef birthday.
How are you, Kia?
I'm good. I'm good.
Join me and my special guest as I celebrate my birthday in concert with a little R&B, jazz, and gospel. The Bayou will have drinks and food specials too. It's limited.
That's good.
And so is
Should have been the space I was in yesterday. Be returning to today.
Oh, what space is that?
That community building workshop that OBP is having.
So I had a meeting with Bader yesterday, and that took me till like 10:30, and then I had a.
Still could have slid it.
Man.
But they want you to be here all 3 days. But
Yeah.
it was some very interesting things that bubbled up. It was necessary, but I'll tell you how that results. Between in Metcalf Park, some things that were happening in regards to people coming in and say, oh, you guys need this, and then organizers and the residents being like, actually, no, this is not what we even want or need.
Well, see, that's my thing. Everywhere, people not talking to the community and then coming in and just doing stuff. You know what I'm saying? Pretty much everywhere in our community we have that issue. Hence Ascension and all this other stuff. They talking about they talk to 200 people and we can't figure out. But we figured out one. But everybody else be like, who's these 200 people?
What happens when it's people that look like us? But yeah, I'm very interested in seeing how that's gonna play out. I'm literally calling people organizers and residents niggas. Like, yes, it was.
Hold on. See, I probably shouldn't have been there because that'd have been a lie right now. Because you know how everything in the room.
My problem is now with white people, it's niggas. He was like, what? Did you really just say that? In front of the white officers, in front of the white people, and in front of us, and to the people that you're talking about? Yeah, it was just a little unbelievable. Wow, it's right. Exactly right.
That make it hard, though. You sit there like, yo.
Yeah.
I need to go
the organizers and the residents, well, you know, we're in a facilitated space, so the organizers and the residents, one of the residents and Flash organizers got up and spoke and like she stood up and gave her piece. But the way it was facilitated, right after that rose up, and like, okay, we're going to take a break. And we didn't open it back up, so I said something I was actually going to say, you know, at the end, let's, you know, continue to address the elephant in the room, but there wasn't no time, they ended up shutting it down again for the time. So I'm hoping that they'll allow them to dive back into them to figure it out. Because that's what the space is for. It's to build so that we can get past these kind of things. And they knew that needed to come out. But you still have to. Oh, well, yeah, that person, yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'm definitely going to have to work.
Is that person like an official? Is this somebody who
not an official, yeah, you definitely know this person. Okay. So I'll wait till it all pans out and then I don't mind sharing because it was actually, no, we talked about confidentiality, so I can't tell you. I can only tell you what happened.
At a community
building, yeah, but we said that we would be confidential.
Okay.
Like, I won't be able to say the names, but I would be
going back in. W293 106.5 Milwaukee.
Joint sideways too.
This way a little bit down.
It's sideways, Keelan.
Come down a little bit.
You want to bring it out?
Right, man. Oh. Yeah, that's cool, I guess. I can't really say. 7:30 straight down inside the Manshow, 860 WNOV and W293 CX 106.5 FM on your radio dial. You know, I want to give a word for today. Don't have a nice day, have a day that matters. That's going to be our word for today. Don't have a nice day, have a day that matters. For you all, I didn't tell you, you are inside the Manshow, 860 WNOV, W293 CX 106.5 FM. We are Voice Choice, and if you don't have a radio dial to do it, then you can tune us in via TuneInRadio.com. Or if you're moving and grooving this morning, take us with you by downloading the TuneIn app to your mobile device from the App Store or the Play Store, whichever store your device requires. And search WNOV, yes, WNOV, or simply stream us live from our website at WNOV860.com. That's WNOV860.com. And as always, the phone lines are open. If you'd like to join the conversation, all you have to do is dial 414-444-5250. That's 414-444-5250. A lot to cover, but before we do, let me give you your weather for the weekend. Today there'll be PM rain, partly cloudy early, and then becoming cloudy with periods of rain this afternoon with possible thunder, a high of 51. Tonight there will be clearing skies after some evening rain with a low of 35. Tomorrow it'll be sunny with a high of 46 degrees. Saturday night we have a mostly cloudy sky, a low of around 31. And Sunday we have a mainly sunny sky, around 55 degrees will be the high, and Sunday night an almost clear sky with a low near 39. Today, right now, it's 40 degrees, and it feels like 40 degrees, and that's what we like to have. It feels like it is. In the studio with us in this segment, Jason and I will be speaking with Nicole Brookshire, Director of Milwaukee County Office of African American Affairs. You take that one eyebrow down. Yeah, she's got the Ice Cube thing going like, what? With major focuses and responsibilities to bring about equity and equality for African Americans that live throughout Milwaukee County. Nicole, we not only want to get an update from you in terms of the mission, the focus, and the vision of the Office of African American Affairs, or what you call it, OA?
OA, yeah.
OA on the county level, but we also want to get to know you, Nicole Brookshire. So, and that's what we do on the Manshow. We like to do the personal profile enhancements in here. We like to get the real deal in here beyond the titles and the offices. So before we go forth and get super serious with our dialogue, let's get personal and allow me to take task and ask who you be.
Who I be?
Who you be?
I be the queen.
Real.
Yeah. She's your queen.
Always throwing up her fist somewhere.
She sleep with a fist ball up.
I know.
Always throwing up her fist.
Yeah, so who you be? Who is Nicole Brookshire on the personal level? That Milwaukee resident, the Mesmer High School stuff. I was gonna call it something else.
He blowing off the cobwebs. Wife of one, mother of three, Milwaukee native. I think that just sums it up. That's who I am. That's what I do day in and day out. A strong family supporter for my immediate and all of my surroundings of extended family as well. That's how I rock out.
Let me get up in your business.
Get up there, dude.
Hold it out.
You know what I'm saying?
No, me and Nikki have been knowing each other for years.
Bust her out, Jack.
Fantastic. Smart, hard worker. Came from Junior Achievement, where you were a big wig. We've always talked about business and development issues, and so when they said that when you called and you said you were going for it, I thought, they couldn't have picked a better person, just because your commitment, your ability to hang in the boardroom, on the street corner, in the pulpit. I mean, we need people like that, and so welcome. Glad you have it. And so, what's the outlook for you? I mean, what do you want to see done?
Given the current landscape that we're in right now with a lot of racial tension, the one foremost vision that I have is driving the conversation on equity. What does that look like, as you said, in the government structure? What does that look like in the boardroom? What does that look like in our community organizations? What does that look like on the street? How do we get our community back from the inside out? How do we get, as a subset to our previous discussion, how do we get our community back to have their voice heard, respected, and then some real solutions driven because of understanding the community in which those large corporations are serving?
Mm-hmm. Do you guys, so I know what the outreach, and so how have you been received? I mean, as you're making your rounds, as you're talking with people, what has been the biggest obstacle for you so far? I mean, if you could say, hey, I didn't expect this, what would that be?
I think I'll flip it a little bit. I think the biggest obstacle is not enough time and not enough manpower.
Okay.
The amount of time or the amount of effort to being received, I would probably say open arms times 10.
Okay.
The community is having expectations yesterday, but duly noted, it should have happened years ago.
Right.
This office should have been created years ago. We should have been further along years ago. So totally understanding why there's this urgency. And the timing of lack of manpower is the only obstacle I think at this moment we have, that in my mind is holding us from having things more in place sooner. But yeah, the community outreach, the community efforts to really want to embrace OA, people openly saying, I'll volunteer my time, just tell me where to show up. That has been very, very, very vocal, and I love it.
And so the responsibility I think that you have, and I think maybe a lot of people don't understand, is that you, given the position that you're in, you have to deal with the potential. How do you open up the door for minority participant contracts? How do you do the mental health? How do you connect to the mental health? You and Vaughn are working on trying to develop some things there. So you touch a lot of different departments in making sure that people have a voice and I think access, just access to the county. What has been your top 3 priorities when you came in? You said, I want to touch these 3 areas.
I think I took it a little bit different approach. Okay. And again, hearing offline some of the news, I think the first thing I wanted to know firsthand is saying, because I was removed a little bit for about a 3-year window from truly government and community discussions, I wanted to know what were my community needs, and I wanted to hear that firsthand from my partners in the community. And I took a very, and I still am, kind of having my list of who to sit down with, how to have these conversations. I wanted to hear firsthand what's working well, what's not, what can OA help you with? How can I bridge those conversations? So being that facilitator, that liaison to just, again, make those connections at the city or the county side, I've taken that as my first approach, because that, again, develops our relationship, develops the rapport, gets an access point that may not have been known or thought of prior. And I think that by itself moves the needle of making sure that we have services being available to those that want them, to a community organizer or organization who may need to have a different conversation, if it's in procurement, if it's in regards to contracting, it's in regards to looking to do small business development, and just knowing how to navigate per se through the system. If I look at the vision, or I look at the top 3 priorities, one of the main things I did first was, again, listening to community residents. Prior to me starting, they did a lot of listening sessions. I twisted that to saying, what's the vision? And using our community to say, what vision do you see when it comes to youth re-engagement, social justice initiatives, and economic growth, meaning job placement, and again, small business development. So that feedback came back. We dived in and had a third party create the report of the facilitated discussion. Now what do we do with it? That's kind of the stage we're at. But on top of that, where is the racial equity plan to what we create? And how do we infuse that within the government structure? That's all of what I'm doing right now to say, feasibly, what can we do with the staff I have or need to grow into? And how do I get my partners to support that? How do I use their feedback to support that?
And you probably have a lot of times, because I know what happens, and I think Vaughn may have touched on it before, you guys were talking about it earlier offline, where we have so many people come into the community, and unfortunately it hurts 2 ways. One, because it continues to perpetuate the trauma, because people come in, they promise, and then they're out. And so you leave us hanging, or there's nothing that's changed. And then 2, we still haven't solved the issue or the problem. So coming into listening to the community, I think, is just hearing them. What have you found to be, we'll take a caller first. What do you, those top needs, where does mental health, where does mental health fall at? With the discussions that you've been having? I mean, on a scale of 1 to 10, how high is mental health for us in our community?
My personal opinion?
Yes.
It would be number 1.
Really?
My personal opinion.
Okay.
Because everybody has a level of trauma that's been undiagnosed. And we've seen it happen to our mothers, we've seen it happen to our grandmothers, our great-grandmothers, et cetera, but we really haven't dealt with it. And it's being overlooked. I think a lot of times in the conversations, we're again looking at the symptoms, not that root cause. And the root cause, again, I think trauma is a component of a symptom versus the root cause that caused us to have this trauma and not deal with it. I think our Black community is very strong and we find ways to survive, but that again may put another level of trauma in the matter of how we make those decisions. So how do we really peel back to understand the why? What's triggering this? What can we do about it? But what caused it to begin in the first place? Those are all the elements that I want to dive into through that feasibility study. Not just looking at the cost, but sustaining a plan that's going to last long term. Should I get ran over by a bus, someone else can pick up these pieces and keep having the right discussion to drive right solutions.
The bus? Get run over by the bus?
That's my famous thing. Sorry.
The county bus?
Hey.
Oh. So, Jay, we're on the same page. I did a little research myself, and I know that they got that OA, the Office of African American Affairs, has really like 8 policy focuses. And when we come back from the phones, I want to try to touch on each one of those. If we could, and see where you all are at with that. Phone lines are open, 414-444-5250, 414-444-5250. If you'd like to join the conversation in studio with Nicole Brookshire, Director of the Office of African American Affairs, Milwaukee County. Also got Von Mays, Marquesa Tucker, Jason Fields in the house. A few against the wall we'll get to. Caller, you inside the Manshow. Talk to us.
Good morning. I would like to know one thing, and that is because of the studies we do, a lot of and everything, but what is your office involvement in taking an issue to get involved, input, and concretize in a positive effect? Taking, let's take the area of what's happening with the health of the extension, the hospital of St. Joe's. What is your plan to get involved, to be at the board, to discuss what they're doing, to make a change on what's going to happen today, because of the fact that it's not something that you can just put off until tomorrow?
My plan would be to remain connected to the conversation, and if the invite is there, I would like to be there as well.
Oh, excuse me.
I know the initial conversation that took place, I was traveling, so I was not available to attend, but I'm definitely eager to stay apprised of it and help support where needed.
No, I guess what I'm saying is when you said you would like to be invited, what about instead of being invited, you contact them and say that you want to be there? So, because sometimes when we wait for somebody else to do something, then it won't get done. But if we press the issue, in order to get involved, you gotta have somebody to deal with in St. Joseph's or your board, whatever it is, to have them say, sit down, we want a meeting because we want to discuss this because it has an effect. Have you thought about doing it from that standpoint? Because we can talk and study all everything else, but if we don't take action on with the group that you're in, that would be the best one to deal with a lot of this, so that we can start getting support, start planning, and coming up with positive action that will affect to stop what was happening, or to offer another way to handle it to make sure the community is taken care of. So
I would agree with that. I would agree with that. I think in my case of what learnings that was shared with me, I think that conversation started. So to not start from ground zero, but to pick up where the discussions already been taken, I think would be more impactful to really drive the right conversation.
Oh, by the way, Community Brainstorming is having their meeting tomorrow, just to remind everybody.
Community Brainstorming.
And
Thank you, Ms. Rowe.
I think that's a great segue, and I want to get Marquesa and Vaughn to chime in. But following back with some of that, because I think Ms. Rose asked a great question. But I think here's where the strategy part comes in. And let me lay it out to you all from an elected official point of view. I'm not going to insert myself just necessarily at a table if I know Marquesa, Vaughn, and Nate are talking already. And you have to, again, remember you're playing chess with some of this stuff, because what happens is we'll start getting divided. They talk to me out in one meeting, then they talking to Vaughn, Marquesa, and Nate in another, and then people trying to divide you. And so what I'm gonna do is say, hey, you know what? I'm not gonna take their call. I'm gonna wait to see what the people on the ground level, the Vaughns, the Marquesas, the Nates have, and then I'm a vibe with them to take back to the potential boardroom or to the legislature to say, hey, here's what the community came up. Because what you don't want to happen is government representatives coming in and over-exerting themselves and into a sense overruling what the community really wants and making points. So you got to be careful. Making the same plan. So you got to be careful how you bobbing and weaving and stuff. And that's what I always tell folks. We ain't playing checkers. This is chess. So you got to be very methodical about how you choose to get involved, because if you get involved to a certain degree, just insert yourself, you ended up going against what the community may have even laid out. And so it's a great question, but Vaughn, your thoughts?
I think, you know, we got to remember that this has been going on for over 18 months and that a lot of electeds and different people have been a part of this conversation and had information and knowledge prior to us getting it, because this was just dropped on us for the most part. You know, my case is here. You know, I was doing my thing from the aspect that I do it, but then I was invited to the table to come and join in, and that's the most effective way. So I think that is the most effective way for us to know what each other is doing and then all come to one table, because we don't want to have separate conversations. We don't want to be making separate plans. But I would hope that when I first supported the Office of African American Affairs, when it was first passed and created, I was thinking like, okay, this sounds like something we can use as a platform to be more easily dive into things that's going on into our community and address those things. So I would hope that that still remains true with mental health, and from my aspect, trauma being so huge in our community. That's where you know, you see on the paperwork where ComForce comes in with what Marquesa and everybody else is doing, and Nate and Citizens Action and everybody else who's involved, is community first responders and training not only adults in the community but young people too. So you expose them to these fields and get them in the mindset of, I want to go into a medical field possibly. But then at the same time, having people immediately available to respond medically in the community as these things happen. Our first year at Sherman Park, a young man was shot. And had I not had the training and my guy Ray Nitty not knowing what to do, we got that young man, wrapped his leg up, and kept him stabilized until the paramedics and the fire department got there. But that's stuff that everybody else don't know how to do. They just sit there and record. But getting people in that mindset, training people, and exposing them to those skills is something that I'm looking to add to the conversation and add to this. So that's my thoughts on it.
You said earlier, look at God. Look at God. Now, in late May, early June, this is going to be 2 years since I started to support Ron out in Sherman Park, and he getting invited to tables now. You know, they used to run him out. They used to run from him.
Some of them still are.
We ain't worried about
this
that.
is year 3, Keon.
Well, for me, it's 2.
Okay.
Because it was 16. You know, I got there after, you know, that one day. Yeah, you've been doing
this. This our third year, the start of our third year.
And we got to get you and Marquesa in here and talk more, because you guys have multiplied since I've last been here. You got a lot more going on than you had 2 months ago.
Right.
You got the two of you are always busy. I mean, your caseload. I'm gonna call them caseloads because y'all stay heavy on the case. We're pushing up against a break. I want to get this one phone call in. A caller who was waiting patiently, 414-444-5250. Caller, you're inside the Manshow. Talk to us.
Hey, good morning, family. I'll be very quick since I know you got to go to break. Good morning, Jay, Nikki.
What's up, man?
Good morning.
Nikki, I think that everything you said is 1,000% on point. And to Mother Rose's point, I think that you need to stay the course, Nikki, and continue to observe, study, research. Because I think oftentimes, you know, people will start something great or have a great concept, and then they allow themselves to be derailed by everything that's going on in the community. And so, like to Jason's point, you know, not having too many people at the table can also work to our benefit, because it's better to have an individual at the table, get the comments back from that individual, than to have 30 people there who are conflicting in their thought process. You know, but the biggest point I want to make is that, you know, if you start to jump on the issues too quickly, that ultimately you derail yourself from the long-term goal, which right now I don't know if you even realize what the long-term goal is. You know, and so if you stay the course of figuring out what that long-term objective is going to be, I think Mother Rose, you know, 10 years from now will be satisfied with the work that you're doing and the idea of OA coming into existence. So I think right now it's so new that people are skeptical in our community. I get it, you know, but I think long term we can't jump on everything and attack everything, every issue that comes before us. I think some things just kind of have to sit by, observe, and then you strategically put something out there so that the next round of events that come around, you're in a better place to actually respond. So have a good one. I want to give shouts out to my wife, Laverne Badger. It's her birthday, so happy birthday, Laverne.
Happy birthday.
All right, Rich.
If I can jump in real quick, like I said, we in a very peculiar situation with this because it's been going on for so long, and the process had been started long before we even knew about it. Currently, right now, like I would say a lot, if not all, most of the residency around there still doesn't know what's going on. So we at the back end of it, and now even with the pause, you have a situation where now the staff does not have to wait till next year. They can say, my job, this is paused, but my job is finna end, this coming year. I should be looking for different work now. Now, what if they all decide to exit us out of there? So we in a very peculiar situation with this, and we need to be dire. We need to be strong on it right now.
So, all right, we got to pause and pay some bills. We'll be back in 2 with a few on the other side inside the Manshow. 860 WNOV and W293CX 106.5 FM, Milwaukee.
Hello, Milwaukee. This is Ernie G. Good. I want to thank you for your support over these years.
Yeah, I know. I'm like,
don't come down to the second cup of coffee.
I had that bad.
You know, they fresh and arch.
Yeah, they fresh and arch. That ain't the eyebrow. That's the muscle.
That's right.
We need to go all together.
He said that Fran was
Hey, so you always come in here and be
check
quiet.
your chest. That's my poker face.
Oh, it's your poker face. Well, unfortunately, all I knew was street, so we flip over tables.
Sometimes you got. I'm like, what is still here?
So when your opponent is holding all the cards over the table, I need to hit these focuses real quick. Hit these focuses. I just touched
Nah, I haven't touched all 8. So just be open.
I was just gonna name them and let you go.
Okay. I'm gonna give a plug for a panel I'm gonna be on tomorrow.
That's cool. Are you talking about the big community or the?
So there'll be a community brainstorming tomorrow.
Might have been there the way.
Yeah, I signed up for this first, but
Not
not
this,
this.
not
Okay.
this one. No. The cheap rounds.
You said how they gonna do the transition.
All right, just had to double check.
Oh man! Don't let me have to get back on dude. I thought that was over with.
Bless up to Sam Stevens. Hey, Tasman Kimball out there in California. Nicole Alvarez. Anthony Courtney, what's up, Bubba?
Martha Love says hi.
Martha Love is watching, or was watching on mine.
Right.
Mac Wine in the house.
She said about an hour ago.
About that too.
I need to talk about the St. Joe's conversation on Sunday real quick too. So folks can come out and talk about what they want to see happening with St. Joe's before while they're on pause.
He slapped it up.
Oh, you did already?
But you can get it again.
Yeah,
I should bring him in.
It makes me think I used to be the BSU president, MATC, and how when you run something as a black person, you get the smaller.
I'm damn near finna just try to show up over there.
Where?
At the thing.
The thing today?
Yeah. Because it's saying what you call it, that it's 3 days, and then they doing $60 a day. I mean $20 gift card or something, but you can. I don't know. It didn't seem like it was mandatory to be there 3 days.
Yeah, it is, because once the conversation starts, then if you're not there to
look in the
work
window
there
and go,
one of the
wow.
days, then you miss out on some of the stuff that was in the space.
So we're gonna come back.
And then the last
That was
day
a bad
is
set
to
of
debrief.
days. That was a bad set of days. Dude, I had so
Any
much
set of
stuff.
days is going to be bad for you altogether. That's a lot.
Yeah, and from 9 to 3, that's just. I was like,
9 to
no
4:30.
way.
That's why I'm sitting here trying to do some work so I can be back there by 9.
Online and do it with your initiative.
I did. Yes, it was beautiful. Yeah, your boy. It was a great day.
Comfortable across that window.
Yes, he was
Hot over there in that corner.
like he picked me up on the floor. Yes.
All right, Keon, they finna get in right now.
Oh, we're gonna finish up and then they should.
What's holding us up is the insurance. Okay, I can get you
because then I can at least possibly get it started to be routed, and then they can say we can't sign to get insured.
Okay. I'll do that.
Morning, David Muhammad.
So we've been making calls, and the issue is that's a conversation we'll have to have with Wendell. Is just he's so all over the place. We just don't get to meet him like that. Because that was what I was trying to get to him and Mike is I should. Y'all have insurance. I don't know how to do it. So you tell me what you got your insurance. I can try to look into it. That's just recently did that, like not even a couple of days ago. So I've just been making calls trying to figure out
to get your free admission tickets. Don't miss the Milwaukee Career Expo on May 3rd. Doors open for veterans at 10:30. The public enters at 11.
But so if we're talking about having no.
WNOV 860 and W293CX 106.5 Milwaukee.
We should talk about that. That's what that's a good
It's always been easier to work with, except for Clark. It's always been easier to work with Charles.
757. Inside the Manshow, 860 WNOV and W293CX 106.5. Yes, you're in the house with me, Keon Jackson Malone. My man Jason Fields ready to fulfill the bill. We're still talking with Mrs. Nicole Brookshire, Director of the Office of African American Affairs, Milwaukee County. We didn't get to Marquesa's input on this all, or input, that's all. I don't want you to be here silent until the last 10 minutes.
I sleep and breathe.
I sleep and breathe. This is what I do. Talk to us.
So no, I'm glad that we're having a conversation because folks need to know that just because Ascension has put this on a pause, that doesn't mean that we should go back and be like, oh yeah, everything is cool. No, it's not cool. We know that people are strategically planning what's going to be next, and so the community needs to do our best to be proactive in this space. We had a very little time to do what we did, but we came together this past Tuesday at Parkline and allowed that space, and just listening to people who used to work at St. Joe's, people who had their kids at St. Joe's. I was born there, my baby was born there, you know, all of these stories. And yeah, we know that the quality also needs to be addressed, but we also know that we can't afford for this hospital to leave that part of the city. People brought up some things like, you know, what if someone's family member is sick and ill? Like, they shouldn't have to take the bus way across town to go see a family member if that hospital is not there. So we want to make sure that people have an opportunity to be in the conversation. So Sunday at Parkline from, I believe it's going to be 5:30 to 7:30, and Parkline is located 3725 North Sherman Boulevard, giving individuals and residents an opportunity to come and share their experiences, their stories, and also, you know, what they would like to see happen. They are more than a part of the conversation. They are the conversation, and Ascension clearly left out the entire community. I mean, when you talk to people that were in that space, these are residents who live right around the hospital, and they're like, yeah, like Ascension never came through. And so to our knowledge, the only folks that they really talked to in that space were the Jewish community. And although we know that's connected to money, but, you know, do not bypass the people there. I mean, someone even went as far as to say, and this is true, that if you take a hospital out of that space, it's like you're killing off that piece of the community, you know, because they don't have access. You know, they shouldn't have to take buses and Ubers just to go and get their health addressed. So I'm very excited to be working with all the partners who helped to put this together, and it's the community organizers who are doing it. And we know that there are some people in different spaces who are also doing things, but if we're not together on this, and people are doing things in silos and things are going on over here, we, as always, as organizers, our first focus is the community. If you're not engaged with those people, you are missing the entire point of what we're doing here in Milwaukee.
So, and it's a great segue back to what we're going to discuss with OA. A few of the policies that you all have. You had 8. You spoke about your top 3, which was economic. I don't know if you really touched on them the way. We come back to them: economic growth, youth re-engagement, and social justice initiatives. But see how she's talking about Ascension St. Joseph. Let's talk about the mental and physical health matrix of health the Office of African American Affairs is to deal with. Speak on that. Where do you want to go with that? What is?
I think there's a couple different components to the mental health or health component of the pillar of focus for OA.
That's what I'm looking to say.
If I drill down to it, it's specifically, we haven't did much because right now it's only a 2-person team. But what I have done is connected with some of the players that are already established. One in particular is like the Office of Violence and Prevention. I would probably say that I would like to remain a very solid partner with them because I know they're going in the community and they're addressing the health component very differently in regards to their connection to addressing the trauma when we have an incident in our districts. That's in support with the Milwaukee County and the police districts. But secondarily, they're driving some new initiatives later this, I would probably say spring's almost over, thank God. We're going to go into summer and the summer months. I think their connection, their feedback of what they drive, how OA can provide them support will be critical. I think secondarily, we're working with the health department. They will be soon, they've already delivered their Elevate plan, but actually having the body, the committee. And so OA will participate on that committee to again drive the fair and inclusiveness discussions. They've addressed 37 health concerns. Not ironic, but all of the 8 areas of focus for OA are within those 37 health concerns. So again, it drives the messaging of what's the root cause.
Okay.
We can see all the disparities, and we know that they all reside in the African American community, but what's the root cause? So how do I have the conversation, or how do I use my partners to drive the race equity or the inequities that exist to solve those problems for health concerns? Ironically enough, I came in contact with someone who helped support drive a solution for the Flint water crisis. How can I use that connection to bring those resources or ideas here? Because we are dealing with a very similar problem here.
And let me correct myself, not what are you doing, but what is OA's outlook on these items, on addressing these items that I bring up. So let's go for economic growth.
Right now, I don't know if we all have a plan. Marquesa alluded to it when we say we operate in silos. I think one thing OA has supported from day one is getting the messaging out there. So for economic growth, we're now part of the Employ Milwaukee Coordinating Council. We're now sitting at the state level for the Wisconsin Minority Unemployment Task Force. My office is now sitting at the table for some Foxconn discussions when it comes to the public infrastructure and the advisory committee. So I'm trying to put myself in places to again bring the information back and drive what are the needs of Milwaukee, or how do we have resources to again drive growth. How do we use the development of Foxconn to help support where we can provide that gap, bringing awareness, providing our small business developers the opportunity to support in construction, support in the development of transportation, the housing. All of those are going to be a need for southeastern Wisconsin. How does Milwaukee play a role? And we hear firsthand what those needs are so we can develop a plan to support them. There's another economic support system that I'm trying to, again, stay relevant to is we have a lot of key players right now that focus solely on small business development. Sometimes they operate in silos. How can I be that in-between person to make sure that everybody hears the same thing, or we work together better to get the messaging back out to those that want to create their own small business? What does that look like? How do we do it? How do we keep feeding each other so that we can get it out here to those that have the interest, they're dedicated, and they want something different? We have to rebuild our own community with that economic component. We can't assume that it's going to be handed to us, but how do we do it? How do we make it successful and again, long-term survive?
Indeed. Now, you touched on housing and transportation within that. Just to let the listening audience know that those are 2 other policy focuses that OA has. Food deserts. You spoke on food deserts last time you were here. What is the outlook been, or update us on your thought process with that?
Still a critical need.
Still a critical need?
Definitely still a critical need. Will remain a critical need because it plays right into your health. If they're all interrelated.
So we haven't gone into any.
We haven't dived into it.
How about academic achievements? I did a little research. I was listening to some she could talk a little bit. I said, let me get her to hit on these points and see if she's updated any. Academic achievements through our educational system.
Given the news of the soon-to-be change with the superintendent, my eye is staying close. I support that MPS wants to drive a new vision and innovation with their Black and Latino Male Achievement Office. That's who I really stay strong and partner and will continue to partner with, because I think that academic achievement and how we get our youth, particularly males of color, that opportunity in a different way and getting our kids engaged is critical. And so I'm not trying to overwhelm or overpower OWA into those discussions, but again, just staying very close to seeing if there's needs, if there are resources, if I can connect them to people and vice versa. I'm absolutely all over it. I branched out a little bit into some of our suburban schools that have had some challenges in the last couple of months, and I've made sure to, again, share the need to have an equitable vision or look when they're talking about behavior, when they're talking about student profiles and plans, and just again, how do they drive awareness of everybody should be equal in those doors, because school should be a safe place for our children. And one of the two, they've been very receptive. They did some miniature conversations with the children to understand where the children's needs are, where sometimes our educators are not kind of engaging in the right manner professionally, being disrespectful, and finding different mechanisms to, again, make change.
Okay. So you touched on social justice earlier, and I guess you just touched on youth re-engagement. So that's
check.
That's all the 8 that I.
But I would like to give one small plug. Social justice initiatives. OWA will be a panelist at tomorrow's Second Chance Expungement Clinic. It's being hosted by the Law Office of Adola. I'm probably killing his last name, and I apologize up front if you're listening. I apologize. The doors open at 8 a.m. It's a clinic hours of the panel will be from 9 to 10, but the actual event will go up until 12. It's a free event, but pre-registration is required. It's www.getmysecondchance.com or by phone 414-395-8061. This event helps identify if someone has a felony, non-violent, Class H or Class I, to see if they can get it expunged off their record. We know the barriers to employment, so I'm checking off that economic growth at the same time, Keon. We know that if we can get that expungement off, we've eliminated one barrier to getting a sustainable job. And so there's going to be outlets and mechanisms to also highlight the job component, or if you still have that felony because you can't get it off, it's labeled in a different class, how do you again work with the right partners to get you a sustainable job to pay, to help you take care of the family, that family component.
And once again, if anyone would like to support your efforts or have input for y'all or questions from y'all, give as many contacts as you can twice for.
Sure. Our office line is 414-278-7979. We're part of the Milwaukee County system, so if you would just do a simple Google search of Milwaukee County and then look for the Office of African American Affairs, we'll be tied to the county exec's office because that's who I report to. But that's the easiest way to navigate to find our website.
Yeah. Anything else?
Yeah, man. I mean, I think let me say this, because I think I'd be remiss if I didn't urge us as a community to keep this in mind, that whenever you're fighting, minor battles, you got to continue to stay focused on the war. And so when you have Marquesa, Vaughn, Nate, Nikki, it's imperative that we don't get caught up in just complaining and coming to a meeting expecting everybody else to do something. You have leaders who are here taking on the mantle. You got to support them, and support means do something. Support don't mean just wait and come and then you take the opportunity to to talk about all the problems. I get that, and there's a time and place for that. We need to focus on how can I get involved? What can I do? Vaughn, what do you need? Marquesa, what do you need? Nate, what do you need? Nikki, what do you need in order to make us effective? So don't get complacent and get comfortable in our trauma. Meaning we're at a point now where we like to talk about the problems. We like to rehash the problems. And then after that, a year later, we rehashing the same old problems. Right. We need to start transitioning and moving to everybody get on board, get on deck, and help support either financially to their organizations or volunteering. And so when people say it takes a village, it literally does take a village. And let me end on this. Know your lane. Know your lane. I'm an elected official. More importantly, I'm a businessman. I'm not going to come and tell community activists how to activate and organize and do all. That's not my lane.
And look, let me tell you, don't tell Vaughn
what to do on how to. No. So let's understand that there's an approach to how we're successful, gang. And so far, we haven't been doing that because we too caught up in our emotions and we're not thinking logically. So put your thinking caps on, and then get to work.
And also, I recommend you don't clap at those. At least 3 of those. I don't know what Nate does, but them 3 other ones he named, Nicole, Vaughn, and Marquez, they clap back.
Dude, I'm not dude. I mean, you shouldn't have came.
I just want you to know them other 3 clap back. So don't try it, don't do it. Nicole, we thank you for joining us today.
Can I do one more plug?
Go one more plug.
I will be remiss, OA has helped support various community efforts in regards to driving the community residents to make sure their voice is heard. We are on the flip side working with 2 agencies. One is also driving an event in May 17th to be exact, with the Archdiocese as well as the District Attorney's Office. The U.S. Attorney's Office, excuse me for that, and many, again, community partners to bring the employer to the table to, again, say, hey, we have supportive services right here in our community that can help anybody that's reentering into the community to get a sustainable job. Take a look at those resources, who our vendors are, that can, again, eliminate the cultural anxiety of letting somebody coming back and getting that true second chance to provide wages to bring home to sustain that family component. So that will be May 17th at the Cousin Center. It's open and free to all. Anybody is welcome to attend, but we're really targeting those employers. Employers sometimes have a challenge with outreach and knowing to come back into Milwaukee to say, we have no talent pipeline. We have a humongous talent pipeline. How do we identify where our needs are, the vendors that can provide those wraparound services, and connect the dots to, again, drive economic growth for our community and our people.
Indeed. Once again, Nicole Brookshire, Director, Office of African American Affairs, Milwaukee County. We thank you for joining us.
Mesmer alumni.
Wait a minute, you just said about Rufus D.
Chaos.
Still gonna
Okay. We're not going to hold that against you. All right, we're going to take a brief pause and transition to our next guest. We're going to talk to Interim Sheriff Richard Smith and the gang here inside the Manshow, 860 WNOV and W293CX 106.5 FM. We'll see you in about 60 to 90.
If you don't mind,
yeah, but we got a whole lot going on.
Let me put it right
Am I supposed to get up and just be in the background?
Yeah, so it's 3 of them, so yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, I would love to sit and stay because I'm actually the co-chair of the Coalition for People's Sheriff.
Yeah, you can definitely stay. You slide right back on
Pull
in.
my seat up a little further. Jump in. Every coalition. By the way, I'm also on this coalition.
Let's go with 3 up in. Come over here by me. If you want to use this mic, or just slide in. We definitely got to
I
get
can
them
go
3
wherever
in.
as long as I can still be on the mic.
Oh,
Just in
yeah.
case
I want you in for the whole
to say a few
Why you
things.
think I call on you?
Hi, how are you?
That's why you was here. I was like, she's so quiet.
You should have seen me in a space yesterday. I wasn't quiet at all. I tried to be, but it didn't work. How are you doing?
Come on up, gents.
Well, he met with at least that's my take.
It's a small one. Jason, I want to bring up the issue that, sheriff powers are very broad in the legislature. Now we have something to go on. Mark is doing this thing, he's like, hey, I'm the sheriff, I can do it, but it's not reliable. Ran the sheriff.
Got a lot of big people in here now.
Let us have a basic conversation first. You ready?
I haven't gotten to it from a legislative point.
WNOV 860 and W293CX 106.5, Milwaukee.
8:15 inside the Manshow, 860 WNOV. Keon Jackson Malone, Jason Field, the man Von Mason. We got a house full in here. But I'll tell you who we also have. We have, as Sherwin put it, the Dr. Sheriff Dr. Interim Sheriff of Milwaukee County, Richard Smith. How you doing this morning?
Yeah, good morning. I tell you what, I've been enjoying the show. I've been in the studio for the last hour. listening to Representative Fields, Nicole, and some of the others. It's been very enlightening. And by the way, let me just throw this out: we're hiring. I'm looking for people in the city.
He's hiring.
I am.
We're not ready for that.
Go ahead, talk to us. We're hiring.
Yeah, we are hiring. We have about 25 openings right now for correctional officers, and I'll tell you what, I would love people from the city of Milwaukee to get in there and register. I mean, we would love to get it filled up with folks that have been looking for work. It's tough to get jobs, I know, from specifically the Milwaukee area. I'm hiring. Come on down.
Well, you know what? By saying that, I'm gonna jump down and hear some of the questions I have for you. What is the actual role of the sheriff's department as opposed to the Milwaukee Police Department? A lot of people don't really. You're just law enforcement today.
Yeah, I know a lot of people think the sheriff is the chief of police. I'm not the chief of police. What we mainly deal with are a couple of main areas. We supply all of what we call the bailiffs. So they're all deputies that work into the court system. We have all the deputies that patrol the airport. The expressway system, we're one of the few counties where the sheriff's office actually is mandated to patrol the freeways. And then a huge part of what we do is, of course, run the jail, which has, of course, been gotten a lot of news over the last couple of years. But we have about 260 some correctional officers that we need. We still, as I say, we got about 30 openings right now. I'd love to get folks from specifically the inner city to come to apply. The jobs are good. They get health insurance. I mean, it's good, stable work, and it's a good way to get a career going. So I very much encourage the listening audience to, if they're looking for work, to consider it.
Okay. Now, I just want to make notice, my disclaimer was, so Dr. Schmidt and I, we scheduled this interview or this dialogue about 3 weeks ago. One thing we do here in the Manshow is that I'm glad you enjoyed yourself. There's a spirit that we invoke in having conversation. I don't really do interviews. I like to have conversation with people. So since then, as a matter of fact, a couple of days ago, you announced that you are running for office, but that is not the conversation that I had intended at all and that I plan to get into at all on the Manshow. Never really politics, always community relations here inside the Manshow. So I just want to make that clear because I know people were having other conversations talking about campaigning. That's not what I'm here to talk about. I wanted to talk to Sheriff Schmidt about what he was doing as the interim sheriff and the changes that had already occurred since he's been in office and taken over the helm from that other guy that we had. So first thing I want to ask you a question. There was something that I heard when you first were appointed to the office is that you were kind of thinking about retiring, and then this guy leaves and they say, hey.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And it was, you know, the previous sheriff had a long run. I actually had no clue that he was going to be leaving. So I kind of was going to call it quits at the end of 2017. Well, when he walked into my office and said on August 31st, 2017, he was hitting the road going out east, I was like, oh my goodness, you know, because by statute, I automatically became the interim sheriff. Right. And I was like, well, and I said this with Sherwin the other day. It's like, well, what does the Lord really want me to do? Right. And I'm a faith-based guy. I'm a Christian. And it's like, if this is what God wants, then I'm in it. And I believe right now, I mean, we are in it and want to do it. And I have no intentions of retiring or going away right now.
Yeah, I was going to say quick paradigm shift there. Like, you're it, tag.
Yep.
So Sherwin brought up Dr. Sheriff Dr. Richard Schmidt, if I may. What is your doctorate regarding?
I do have a doctorate in theology. I've been through, I actually graduated from 3 colleges and seminaries that are specific to theological things. So I got a huge background that I actually speak in churches all around, actually around the country. But I'll tell you this, you know what I'd rather do? I'd much rather on Sundays be in local churches in the Milwaukee area. I can come and talk on law enforcement issues, but I can also come and we can talk about the gospel. We can talk about Bible issues and so forth. I won't get into that much as the sheriff, but yeah, I got the full credentials.
So
and
we can call you Pastor Sheriff.
You can call me pastor, doctor, anything but late for dinner.
Late for dinner.
Bishop.
Yeah. Well, you got to go pastor a little while before you get to bishop.
When you go to those churches, stay for the full service, man. Don't walk out early.
No, I know that.
We will talk about you.
Don't walk out early.
Yep.
Marquesa says we will talk about you when you couldn't. Yeah.
That's all good.
So let's get a little more personal, because I haven't had the opportunity to ask, who is Richard Schmidt? Is he reachable? Is he touchable? You know, give us a personal profile presentation. Are you a hometown talent?
Yeah, I actually was born in Milwaukee. My dad was a mechanical engineer. We moved out to Seattle. He worked at Boeing for a while. We moved back to, actually I grew up mainly in the Chicago area, specifically a little suburb called North Riverside. He went and worked for a company called Western Electric. About 35, 36 years ago, I moved back to Milwaukee, worked a bunch of odd jobs, and had a couple of kids without insurance, and all of a sudden the sheriff's office job pops up. I was also doing church work at the time, and my aunt said, "Hey, what do you think about the sheriff's office?" I'm like, "Are you kidding? I'm not a cop. I don't know. It's in my gig." And but I applied, and now I've been in it 31 years. I've come up through the ranks. I absolutely love the work. We'll talk a minute about one of the most important things as the sheriff, which is our community relations team, which a couple of our guys are here today to talk about that. But that's who I am. I love people. I care about people. That's a different mantra than you usually hear out of law enforcement. In fact, the word love usually doesn't come out of a law enforcement officer's mouth, but you're going to hear it a lot out of me because I do care about people. I love people. Yes, I have to hold people accountable. That's part of what we do as well. But after we hold them accountable, we put them in, if they have to end up in jail or and so forth, you got to help individuals overcome these things. It's not put them in jail, throw away the key. There's got to be a relationship with the community. Nicole Brookshire talking about a little bit early. It's just essential that these kind of things are going on. And by the way, I applaud Nicole for what she's doing. I've watched her since she came on. I've been to a couple events where she's been, and quite frankly, I met her kids before I met her. We were at an event, and I was sitting next to some very, very nice, well-behaved kids. We had a good chat, and lo and behold, it's Nicole's kids.
You know, she keeps a fist balled up, so they were very well behaved.
Yes.
Now. So, Marquesa was over here writing a question to action. We kind of got it. Can we touch on the previous issues at the Milwaukee County Jail?
I thought we weren't going to get political.
Well, that wasn't
That's good. I'm good.
We're actually communal. That's everybody's cousin in that jail.
Yes, it is.
Medical screenings, in custody, disciplinary actions. You know, I know when I was listening to you on another show, you said you've gone through 6 major initiatives since October,
yep.
And you have 4 more new initiatives, and one of them being senior citizen protection. You're big on that one, so talk about that real quick. We didn't see this from the last sheriff, so even if you wasn't running, I was going to ask you about these.
Yes, you want to talk about the jail or the elder abuse?
All of them.
All of them. Okay, well, let's hit the jail first, because obviously that's been the big optic over the last couple of years. There's been, and I mean, everybody knows, and it's been a national issue, quite frankly, because the previous administration had national attention. There was some bad outcome in the jail. I can't go into detail on that based on it still going through the criminal justice, the judicial system, but here's what I can say. We have made many, many changes in that jail. The day I was appointed sheriff, I told my jail administrator, get on the phone, call the National Institute of Correction, federal agency, the best of the best in corrections. I want them to come in and do a complete assessment of the Milwaukee County Jail. Now, because the feds have a federal system, they didn't have money in the coffers, so it's like, oh my goodness, am I going to be able to get them in or not? Well, fortunately, in January, they got enough money. They hired 2 of their best technical assistants. They came in from February 28th to March 2nd, did a complete assessment of the jail. Meanwhile, I had run the jail from 2004 to 2010. I know corrections. I also ran the House of Correction for several years. So I knew what needed to be done. I immediately changed a good number of the command staff. I brought in what was called wellness coordinators. I put about $400,000 worth of labor. I moved them from other positions. I brought them in to make sure, and I know we're limited on time here, but We brought in these individuals, so I have healthcare staff, I have correctional officers, and now I have 3 very experienced captains. They're 15 to 20 year experience. They know how to go. This is literally their whole job, and this is a tough job. They literally spend their entire day, every time they're on shift, going cell to cell, talking to each and every one of the inmates, specifically in the vulnerable sections, our mental health section, our medical section, the discipline section, which is where that one super bad outcome happened. I want to know that our inmates are properly cared for mentally with their medical and mental health issues. And again, I'm giving Nicole a lot of shout out here, but she brought up the fact of one of the huge issues is trauma, mental health issues. Well, folks, when the worst trauma comes, that's how individuals are ending up in our jail. They've got horrific issues they need to deal with. Unfortunately, sometimes they turn to the criminal side of life and they end up in our facility. Well, they need help. You can't just put them in there and throw the key away. They've got to get treatment. They've got to be helped. 30% of all of our inmates are on psychotropic drugs. That means they have significant mental health needs. 30% have very serious medical issues. They've been living on the streets. They've been doing drugs. They've been doing opioids. They've been doing crack and cocaine. I mean, they're seriously ill sometimes. So we need to help these individuals recover, get them as strong as they can. Some of my friends, conservative friends, if you will, it's like, well, listen, they screwed up their life, too bad, so sad, throw them in and get rid of the key. That does not work. That's why we have the problem of the revolving door in the jail, because we don't get them the help that they need. Well, that's one of the key things that as sheriff, I'm taking care of it. And by the way, it is my statutory obligation to do it. These are pretrial detainees. They're to be cared for, and we're doing that. So, if we're good on the jail, Keon, I'll move to the next.
Well, actually, we're going to move to pay some bills real quick.
Yeah, because I want to, here's the question I want to answer. And I wonder, because I think it could be answered in all of this. How do you rebuild and establish trust in the community? Because I think eventually what's happening is when people see those things, the jail, all that is a byproduct of, we've seen some stuff. How do you change that with the community itself?
We got time, or
take that on the other side of the break.
I'll kick it when we come back.
Yep, take a pause for the calls, pay some bills. Inside the Manshow, 860 WNOV, W293CX 106.5 FM. See you back in 2 and a few.
Because I actually want to ask you to, because I want to understand when you look at these issues, and when you're in any organization, you look at leadership government, it starts at the top. How do you instill those values so that it is rebuilding trust? And then as the deputies and soldiers on the field out there, how do you end up doing that in the community? Because the reality is that we're in a tense situation. I mean, so how do you do that going forward? Different regimes. How do we look at this regime different from the last one?
Wait to answer the question. That's a key thing.
Yeah, I've heard you were on the news and the old sheriff called in. Yeah, my people told me. My people told me.
I've been trying to forget that since the day it happened.
My people called and said, Jason. Actually, it was Chris Avery. He said, you know.
So, Squad, this is your community?
Community relations.
Okay, yeah, we finna get. Oh, yeah, that's my next question. Yeah, Jay, I'll let you.
This is going to be a perfect segue because this is what it's about.
You might be sweating it. If this was, oh my God. No, you'll be all right.
Need some air?
No, man.
You'll be all right.
And I'll rephrase the question. I'll re-ask it again when we come back. So because one of the things you said that I'm glad to hear you say. I've been the vice chair of urban revitalization for the state committee, and so we went around the state and we talked about mental health, affordable housing. And what a lot of people don't understand is that some of the same ills Milwaukee suffers from, outside of the area suffer from too. Totally different populations. It may be all white, Latino, Hmong, same issues. And and you mentioned your conservative friends, because I have, people know I get along well with Republicans. One of the issues was I have police officers, sergeants, sheriffs come and say, listen, that throw them in jail, throw away the key mentality, it doesn't work. But yet they don't hear that.
Yeah, it's a problem.
And how do you get them to understand that looks good politically to, you know, that's the whole toting gung, gung ho. It looks good, but it doesn't work.
It's called the bottom.
And it's like when people in your position would say that, those guys would just turn their head and look away. And I'm like, yo, you have people from law enforcement telling you this throw them in jail, throw away the key stuff doesn't work. But yet, legislation after legislation, that's exactly what came through.
I would like that word you use, detainees, retrials, detainees, as using because it sounds like just change the terminology. Is it a specific reason why y'all use inmate as a term rather than other?
It's just, I mean, historically, it's just the word, you know.
It sounds.
Well, it is.
It sounds better. It sounds more.
But that's good input. I appreciate that.
Which one is this? Richard?
Sir.
Is that yours? Oh, I didn't see that. My bad. That's electrical equipment. He got water up there.
You gonna fry us off?
Kill us all.
I just hold it.
Now, save me first, bro.
I got you. I got you.
Save me.
8:32, Dr. Pastor, Interim Sheriff Richard Smith and the crew with Jason Fields ready to fulfill the bill inside the Manshow, 860 WNOV and W293 CX 106.5 FM on your radio dial. My man Jason Fields had a question he wanted to pose for the sheriff, and he did pose to the sheriff on the other side. I'm going to have you repose that question after I hit this caller on the phone line. Phone lines are open, 414-444-5250, 414-444-5250. Caller, you're inside the Manshow. Talk to us.
Hey, is it me? I'm on?
Yes, it's you. You're on.
Fuck.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Keon.
Good morning.
We talked this morning. This is Gabby. I have a question. Hey, I have a question for the sheriff in town as well. Me and Vaughn work closely with the youth in the park, and Sherman Park specifically. We plan on branching out to the other parks this summer, and I can appreciate, your changing around the staff and, actually trying to change things, or actually doing things to change things that's going on in the jails. We have a situation and a problem with the way that the children are handled in our parks as well, and it's identical. So I'm just wondering, do you have any plans, or do you have knowledge of that? Do you have any plans on talking to the sheriff on how they interact with the kids in the park? Because that, the way that goes on, if we weren't there in the park and starting to do our work in the park in 2016 up until now, like a lot of them would have ended up in the jail and have ended up in the jail, because of what goes on in the park and how the sheriff interacts with the kids in the park.
Thank you, Gab.
Yeah, appreciate that. I think it's an extremely important issue. And here's what we're doing. Now, again, I took over September 1st, and I'm making some significant changes, which we'll talk about in the next few minutes here. But Sherman Park is certainly one of the optics that we're investing with our new unit, which I'm calling Community Relations. And actually, a couple of the guys are here right now. I'll let them kind of chat about that. I'm very, very concerned, and I'm being point blank honest here about what's taking place And again, I talk blunt, and I think it's helpful. Many of the African American neighborhoods have been neglected, if you will, by the sheriff's office. We've had patrols that have been in there in the summers and so forth, but the community relations piece just literally didn't exist specifically in the African American community. So I really am, and when I say targeting it, I'm targeting it in a good way. I'm working now with the Rambe group. I'm working, in fact, I just met with Brandon Culpepper from PEP yesterday. We've got a couple of initiatives we're going to be working on. Our community relations guys, which are here, it's a brand new unit. We have individuals that know how to talk to kids, they know how to relate to individuals. And the one thing I constantly hear is we want people in the neighborhood that look like us. That is a constant mantra wherever I go. People want to see. Well, they're going to see it. And we have individuals, if you will, that look like the people they're going to be working with. And I think you're going to see changes. It's this summer. It's a brand new world with the sheriff's office. We're coming in with our community relations people. We're going to work hard. I was in a school yesterday, Clement School, and it was a very eclectic group. We had third graders that I was in. You say you could talk to third graders? I'll talk to any age. So we had third graders from the white community, from the Hispanic community, from the African American community. It was just a phenomenal experience, by the way. These young people, they weren't sitting there fighting each other. In fact, I got to just share this real quick. I asked, what do deputies do? What do cops do? And every single one of these third graders, because they haven't had their minds tainted, if you will, at this point yet, every one of them is like, well, you help people, you serve people. And I said, well, that's a good thing. You can talk to somebody and say, hey, how you doing today? I watched 31 kids in that class. This was unprovoked. They turned around, they looked at each other. Every one of the kids said to the next kid sitting next to them, how you doing today? Are you okay? I mean, now, if we can somehow get our law enforcement officers, our community to get to that point, it may take a while. I'm not going to say it's going to happen overnight, but that's the kind of thing. And again, I started out saying law enforcement needs to love people, not just throw them in jail. Now, we have to throw folks in jail on occasion, but you work with people, you have community involvement, there's going to be a change.
No, say it ain't so. You lock people up?
Yeah, unfortunately, on occasion.
How long y'all here? I got a few names.
I got a few people that you understand.
I need to move around.
Phone lines are open 414-444-5250, 414-444-5250. Call it, you're inside the Manshow. Talk to us.
Yes, I was just wondering if you're going to have a recruitment service inside the park where the young men are playing basketball outside, and I've seen in a lot of the kids, not just the Sherman Park area, but in all areas of the black community and in the white communities and other communities need services. And it's been very hard to get the sheriff's department inside to really do a thorough background of what is going on in those parks. So I'm just wondering if there is going to be in all areas. And so because they have had several murders inside of that park and several other things that go on inside of that park. So I'm asking for you to take a thorough background and look at all areas of this community, not just focus on one area.
Yeah,
and make sure that if you're going to recruit people, have a recruiting staff out there as well. Have a blessed day.
Thank you for your contribution.
Yeah, and you bring up a very good point. Now, here's what I did. I've been to see every one of the city aldermen. I'm meeting with all the county supervisors. We're talking about the various parks that exist in their districts. Now, here's the unfortunate thing. We have 15 budgeted people that do parks. I have 144 parks. That makes it a little tough. So and I can't put it any more blunt than this. The squeaky wheel's going to get the grease. So you call my office and say, hey, I need X in a specific park, you're going to get priority. Now, I'm going to get 900,000 phone calls today, but the issue is I know there's a massive amount of issues in multiplicity of places. we're going to get around. Now, I mentioned Sherman because it came up from a previous caller. Sherman is important, but there's 144 parks. 15 people have to get to all of them and try and do law enforcement, which is, of course, why we partner with the Milwaukee Police Department. By the way, I said the word partner. Chief Morales and I are, I think I can say, and he would agree with this, we're good friends. We're working together on these issues. We've got some initiatives we're going to be doing together. This is the kind of thing I think Milwaukee has been waiting for. It's here, it's happening. It's a new day, it's a new dawn.
Thank you, because that was a great contribution, a great question, and all the callers. And I think, so Chief, what I want to know, and I want to hear from you and the two sheriff deputies who are here, I think one of the things that happens is when we look at organizations, and leadership starts at the top and it drops down, and hopefully, now that you will always have influence over everybody, but how do you change, or how do you rebuild that trust with the community? Because I think that's what leads to this tension. And to be candid, I mean, there was a time where when you saw a law officer enforcement vehicle when I was growing up, you ran to that vehicle. I don't know when it changed. And given the tensions that we live in now, as some of the callers have alluded to, is Vaughn, Marquesa, I don't know, I'm not going to say that. Right.
Marquesa.
Sorry. How do you rebuild that trust? Because I think what the community experienced under the older regime led to a lot of these issues. And how do we get to the new vision? How do we get to the new movement where the community can come in and partner?
Yeah, that's a phenomenal question, and I'm really happy you asked it, because this is one of my major initiatives. The jail was one of my first 5 initiatives. The next thing one of my other 5 major initiatives was to get a community relations group going that actually did community relations. So sitting next to me is Captain Paul Thompson. He's the only guy looking. I'm 6'5", he's about 6'7". He's a big guy.
Yeah, man, when y'all came in, I'm gonna be honest, I was a little nervous.
WWF from
Yeah, but here's the thing. We may look tough on the outside, but I don't want to say this on the air, but he's a big teddy bear. I mean, I just love the guy, and he loves people.
All your street cred without the window.
Watch out.
Teddy bear. And sitting right next to him is Alexis Colon. He's really hitting the Hispanic community. He's on the other community. So we're really working hard. The African American community, the Hispanic community, the Asian community. If you look at me, I have a little part in the white community, so we kind of cover all bases. But this is what the change is. First of all, you've heard me state multiple times already, we care about people, we're loving people. Yes, we have to do the accountability factor and so forth, but the optic that the community wants to see is we're not out there to try and bust heads. We're out there to build relationships and so forth. In fact, because the good captain here works in the specific African American community and does a lot of things, I'd like to turn it over here. You can hear from the horse's mouth, so to speak.
Same question to the both of you. How do you, because you're out there, how do you partner with people? I mean, you have Vaughn sitting here. How do you rebrand and reshape the trust factor? Because I mean, it's very tense.
Can I add to that? Why you answer that question? Because mine goes right with that. It's a diverse group right here. So, being a hometown talent, let's talk race relations. Since we're going to talk community relations, being over a county in what national and worldwide media have reported as the most racist state in the union, and within that racist state is what national statistics show as the worst city for black males, men of color to live in, and the worst place to raise children of color. And not to exclude the state's standing regarding the worldwide incarceration rate. So I'm just going to leave the mic open for you right there to talk about relations with the Sheriff's Department and the community.
Right.
And we need it fixed by tomorrow.
No. Yesterday.
Right. Yeah, well, this is a long-term process.
Right.
I think the biggest thing for us is to get out and meet with them and talk with them, to interact with them. I think that's the biggest thing. Sometimes a smiling face, it goes a long way. Because sometimes, there's that aura
around police officers, you know, and people tend to tense up when they get around police officers. So I think the biggest thing is talking to them, you know, let them know that we care, interact with them, go to these meetings, you know, these forums, these events, and I think that's our way of showing that, hey, we're here, we're gonna change, we're gonna help you as much as we can and what we can, and change the image. I think that's the biggest thing. Once you change the culture, and you know, the image also changes. So for us, interacting with the community, I mean, there's so many events and so many community organizations that we have interacted with since 8 months ago. I couldn't even begin to tell you how many. So, and we're open. We're open if you have, you know, if there's an issue that's happening in your community, you know, give us a call. We'll come sit down and listen to you. We'll even give you some suggestions, some advice. But I think the biggest thing is to listen to the people. You know, so that's what we do. We listen.
So what I think I'm hearing you say, you're here for us, whereas before it's like we're not coming out at all. Do what we say. Now you're here.
We're here.
Okay. Alexa.
Yeah, and how do we build trust? You know, it's like Captain said, we show up at events. I remember when I first got on this unit in September, even though the sheriff said, you know, I do a lot of the Spanish events. I know my first event was on Billard between 34th and 35th, and it was Sincere.
Sincere.
Yeah, Sincere Days. You know, adopts a neighborhood.
Yeah.
It was a great event. You know, I hung out with the kids. You know, smiling faces. We had a good time. We show up at all these events. You know, talk to people. We network. Just a few weeks ago, the grand opening or the ribbon cutting for the Milwaukee Urban League's workforce development off of
Technology Center.
Technology Center, yes, off of 3rd and off of MLK and North. You know, we go to all that stuff. You know, we go to neighborhood crime watch meetings. That we'll listen. We listen to concerns. You know, we'll come back. I'll tell these concerns to the captain if he wasn't there, and it'll get to the sheriff. And if the sheriff needs to move stuff around, you know, it gets done. And we got to stay consistent. I mean, you know, we go. Some of the organizations we've been working with a lot are Safe and Sound. We've started working with the Sherman Park Neighborhood Association, United Community Center, a lot of stuff with the Boys and Girls Club, Amani Community-Based Crime Resolution. Okay, we go to those meetings. I've just been all over. I mean, one of the great events I went to was on the sheriff's behalf. They had us go to is it Agape Love? It was a production. It was awesome. I had actually never been to the Pabst Theater. It was a great production, you know. So you know, we just go, we're visible, smile, and talk.
So how do you? Because here's where I'm at with this. So we can sit here with the three of you, and it's great and it's love, and we're all cool. Right. And you three may not be the problem, Sheriff.
Right.
How do you instill that same set of values? And I don't want to put you in the same class as the Milwaukee Police Department because they're different entities. But how do you reassure us, hey, I'm going to keep my organization, everybody on point, in line?
Yeah, again.
Because the three of us are all cool. Right?
Yeah.
We are cool right now, but it won't be you guys who's the problem.
Right. And that, you hit the nail on the head. Again, you know, we can come on air and it's like, yeah, peace, love, and harmony, but what's the other 260-some deputies doing? Well, here's part of the number 3 initiative that I had. So you guys are just hitting them one by one. The other initiative was not only were we doing community relations, but my mandate for the sheriff's office is you're going to get along with people. Now, like you said, it starts at the top, and we need leadership at all levels. You want to find a press clip of me fighting with the county exec, you're not going to find it. You want to find a press clip of me fighting with the chief of police, not going to find it. From every single leadership level, and the chief judge, the district attorney's office, the supervisors, it doesn't matter who it is. My mandate is not only am I going to get along with people, all of our officers must get along with people, or they're not going to work for me.
All right, with that, we got to take a pause for the calls. We're in the studio with Dr. Pastor Sheriff Richard Schmidt, Paul Thompson, Deputies Paul Thompson, and Alexis Cologne, Jason Fields. We'll be back on the other side to close out the segment inside the Manshow. Let me throw this back up here. WNOV and W293, CX 6.5 Milwaukee.
sure. But what I was concerned about is actually de-escalation. The thing that, I don't want to stereotype you in our community, that we have a tendency culturally, particularly when we believe that we're right, to want to argue our case, interrupt the other person when they're speaking, and increase the volume of our voice, particularly when we feel that we're innocent. It is even heightened more with young people. And so I haven't heard anything, and particularly I'm speaking to you because you just mentioned a couple hundred officers. That's different than having 2,000 like the police force. Is that it needs to be a professional type of development within the sheriff department, since you're sheriff, please, where you understand the escalation, particularly in our communities, because you went through that training. You had, when you went through the academy, you had yelling in your face, you had the tension, but all of a sudden you come to a situation where a young person is trying to tell you something, the professionalism go out the door. Now I'm sheriff and you have to listen to me now, be quiet, child. And instead of recognizing that I always have the power, and that smile that you're doing at the festivals need to go for all the officers, and that would stop a lot of the issues in the park. You have the discretion, so I'm saying there needs to be a clear de-escalation within the department, particularly around our children, because that is a cultural dynamic. And I'm saying it made me think about the waffle incident, because two things I've seen, that she thought she was innocent, which I believe she was, but you can't argue that with officers at the time. I think y'all all recognize that Waffle House incident, and that she was speaking in a high tone, that also creates a certain dynamic because she thought she was innocent. You know, and so if you're innocent and the police come, then you just, or sheriff, you're already in trouble. And then we got the highest eviction rate of black women, and I know that's under your issues of the sheriff.
Court makes us do it.
Well, I'm saying that it needs to also be some competency and cultural dynamic, because we got people, women, that are the main signers on these leases, even if they have other people that's being kicked out of their home, and children.
Forgive me, because I don't know who you are. You are...
She.R. Winston. Excuse me, I don't... yeah.
So, who you get now?
She.R. Winston.
Okay, and forgive me, because I have
no just community activist.
Yeah, well, you should have said that. We kind of, you say your name, She.R. Winston. Okay,
This community activist, I'm sure after you identify you.
Wait, no, hold on.
She rolled it up on
your question labeled you dead.
Oh, I already know. I already know.
So I just want you to say it.
And I know that you're going to look it up.
No, I'm not going to. No.
Something kind of tells me I'm going to hear from you again. You know?
He is very reputable in regards to coming to community. He attends our community justice council.
And I want to see it work.
So,
sometimes it's hard to believe that the system will work, but it's possible that it can.
WNOP 860 and W293CX 106.
Look like you're kind of undercover today, man.
No.
He got his earpiece.
It's 8:53, 7 minutes before the 8 o'clock hour. We got to make room for the forum with Sherwin Hughes here on 860 WNOV and W293CX 106.5 FM. Want to close out this segment, get closing remarks from our guest, Sheriff Richard Schmidt. You got any closing remarks for the people?
Yeah, I do. We ended on where I basically said I'm not going to tolerate any, if you will, harsh conduct towards the public. I do want to say this because I really truly believe in our officers. I believe in what they're doing. The vast majority, are really, they've latched on to this. They're good cops. Our deputies, they're doing the right thing. They're wanting to reach out to the community. Yes, again, we have to do the law enforcement aspect, but I want to commend our officers. They've been following the vision and the mission of the sheriff's office. I think they like the new optic. It's a much happier, better morale type of an organization, because we're not sitting there trying to, if you will, beat folks up. We want to help folks. We want to serve people. 90% of what we do is service-oriented. Maybe 10% is actually accountability, where we have to arrest people, citations, and all that type of thing. So last thing I'll say is I love our community relations folks. They're doing the right thing. They're out in the community, not just at Sherman Park, which it's certainly one of our major places we want to be at. But we'll be around the entire city coming up this summer. We're looking forward to it. And thanks so much for having us.
And thank you for coming. Deputies, Paul Thompson and Alexis Cologne, any closing remarks?
No closing remarks. The sheriff answered it.
Okay.
I'll be everywhere. North side, south side. I love, you had the caller talking about King Park. I remember as a kid going to the House of Peace, walking to King Park with Brother Booker. And we'll be there too. So, all right.
Brother Booker. Yeah. They go Mesmer, y'all.
Him and Cheryl, they used to both scare me.
Yeah. You got anything?
Thank you, everybody, for coming. Remember to thank God for waking you all up another day. Be excellent, and every day try to be better than the day you were yesterday.
All right. And with that, we are done. As I say, each one, reach one, teach one, and learn a little something for yourself along the way. So we're concentrated people, and you'd be surprised at what a little dab would do. As I always say, you don't have to be an intellectual to say hi. And as always, be good, be careful. Bye-bye.
Hey, Paul, did you see my email?
Great show. Great show. Great job.
Yesterday, I think.
Oh, no, I did SWAT training yesterday.
Oh, you got it in. Hey, the spirit make things move the way it's supposed to move.
So they have no representation.
I think so. Hey, we got to make our way to the foyer so Sherman can come in. Go to the office.